Hello, it's time for Chapter 4 of Salsa Stories. Dramatic pause. The Night of San Juan, Abuelita's Story. Back in the 1940s, in Puerto Rico's walled city of Old San Juan, everybody knew everybody else. We neighborhood children played freely together on the narrow streets, while from windows and balconies adults kept a watchful eye on us. It was only my lonely friend, Jose Manuel, who was forbidden from joining us. "Look, Evelyn," whispered Amalia. "He's up there, watching us play." Aitza and I looked up. There he was, sitting on his balcony floor. He peered sadly down at us through the wrought iron railing while his grandma's soap opera blared from the radio inside. No matter how hard Jose Manuel tried, he could not convince his grandma to let him play out in the street. "Too many drivers! Too hard! The cobblestones! Muy peligroso!" his grandmother would shake her head and say, "Too dangerous!" Besides her fear of danger on the street, Jose Manuel's grandma kept to herself and never smiled, so most of us were afraid of her. That is, until my sisters and I changed all that. One day, Amalia suddenly announced, "I'm going to ask his grandma to let him come down and play." If anyone would have the courage to do that, it was my little sister Amalia. Even though she was only 7, she was the most daring of the three of us. We never knew what she would do next. In fact, at that very moment, I could see a mischievous grin spreading across her freckled face as 2 elegant women turned the corner of Calle Sol. Once they strolled down the street in front of us, Amalia swiftly snuck up behind them and flipped their skirts up to expose their lace-trimmed slips. "Sin vergüenza!" the women cried out. "Little rascal!" We could hardly hold our laughter in. We all looked up to make sure none of the neighbors had seen her. If anyone had, we would surely have been scolded as soon as we got home. News traveled fast in our neighborhood. Luckily, only Jose Manuel was watching us with amusement in his wistful eyes. Grateful for an audience, Amalia smiled at him, curtsied, and ran down the street toward the old cathedral with us chasing after her. I couldn't help but feel sorry for my friend as we left him behind. There was hardly any sea breeze that day, and running in the humidity made us quite hot. "Let's get some coconut sherbet," said Amalia, peeling her damp red curls away from her sweaty neck. "See," we agreed, and we chattered excitedly about our plans for that night all the way to the ice cream vendor's wooden cart by the harbor. It was June 23rd, and that night was the night of San Juan. For this holiday, the tradition was to go to the beach, and at exactly midnight, everyone would walk backward onto the sea. People say that doing this 3 times on the night of San Juan brings good luck. I thought of my friend Jose Manuel. Perhaps if he did this with us, his luck would change, and his grandma would allow him to play with us outside on the street. I thought about this as we bought our coconut sherbet and then ate it perched on the knobby roots of the ancient tree above the port. Excitement stirred in me while the distant ships disappeared over the horizon. "How can we get Jose Manuel to go to the beach tonight?" I asked my sisters. "Evelyn, you know very well his grandma will never let him go," Aitza said. "You know what she will say." "Muy peligroso," Aitza and Amalia teased at once. "Too dangerous." It was getting close to dinner time, and we knew we had to be home soon if we wanted our parents to take us to the beach that night. So we took the shortcut back across the main square, and the plaza. Groups of men played dominoes while the women sat by the fountain gossiped. Back on the street, we heard the vegetable vendor chanting, "Vendo yuca, plátanos, tomates." He came around every evening to sell his fresh cassava, plantains, tomatoes, and other fruits and vegetables. Leaning from her balcony, a big woman lowered a basket that was tied by a cord to the rail. In it was the money that the vendor replaced with 2 green plantains. As we approached our street, I saw Jose Manuel and his grandma out on the 2nd floor. She gave Jose Manuel money and went back inside. He was about to lower his basket when I had an idea. Maybe there was a way we could ask him to join us. "What if we send Jose Manuel a note in his grandma's basket, inviting him to go to the beach with us tonight?" I offered. "It will never work," Aitza said. "His grandma will not like it. We could get in trouble." "Then we could ask her personally," I said. "But what excuse could we use to go up there?" said Aitza. "Nobody ever shows up uninvited at Jose Manuel's house." Wait, I know what we can do, Amalia said, jumping up and down. We'll tell him to drop something. Then we'll go up to return it. Even though Aitza was very reluctant, we convinced her to try out our plan. We wrote the note and asked the vegetable vendor to please place it in Jose Manuel's basket next to the vegetables. We impatiently waited on the corner as we watched. When he opened the note, he looked puzzled. He took the tomatoes he had purchased into his grandmother. Soon he returned with his little red ball. He had just sat down to play when suddenly the ball fell from the balcony. It bounced several times, rolled down the hill, and bumped into a wall. Amalia flew after it. I got it! She called triumphantly, offering me her find. With Jose Manuel's ball in my hand, we climbed up the worn stairs of his pink apartment house. And while Aitza and I stood nervously outside his apartment trying to catch our breath, Amalia knocked loudly on the wooden door. With a squeaking sound, it slowly opened, and there stood Jose Manuel's grandma wearing a frown as grim as her black widow's dress. See, she said, how can I help you? Aitza and I looked at each other. She looked as afraid as I felt, but without hesitation, Amalia took the little ball from my hand and proudly showed it to Jose Manuel's grandma. I wanted to run, but a glimpse of Jose Manuel's hopeful expression made me stay. This belongs to Jose Manuel, Amalia declared. We came to return it. Amalia took a deep breath, then took a step forward. We also wanted to know if he could come to the beach tonight with our family. Aitza and I meekly stood behind Amalia. The beach? Jose Manuel's grandma asked, surprised as she took the little ball from Amalia's palm. Yes, I stuttered. Tonight is the night of San Juan, and our parents take us to the beach every year. Jose Manuel's grandma scowled at us. How silly to think she would ever let him go. I suddenly felt embarrassed and turned to leave, pulling both sisters with me by their arms. Wait, we heard her raspy voice behind us. Come inside for a surito de maíz. It was then that I smelled the aroma of the corn fritters that was escaping from the kitchen. Jose Manuel's grandma was making surullitos for dinner. Oh, yes! Amalia followed her in without a thought, and before we knew it, we were all seated in the living room, rocking chairs next to Jose Manuel, eating the most delicious corn fritters that we dipped in garlicky sauce. Somehow, sitting there with Jose Manuel, his grandma, seemed less scary. After we finished, Jose Manuel's grandma thanked us for our invitation and said she would let us know. Jose Manuel smiled. When we got home, we found Mommy waiting with her hands on her hips. She had just hung up the phone with Jose Manuel's grandma. She had reason to be upset. Not only were we late for supper, but in our excitement, we had forgotten to ask for permission before inviting Jose Manuel to the beach. We all looked down, not knowing what to do or say. It wasn't my fault. It was Evelyn and Amalia's idea, volunteered Aitza, the coward. Bendito, Mommy, I said, don't punish us. We forgot. Forgot? Mommy asked. See, Mommy, we all said at once, we're sorry. Actually, it was very nice of you girls to invite him, said Mommy, but please remember to ask me first next time. Later that night, the whole family went to the beach, as was our tradition on the night of San Juan, but this time was special, for we had Jose Manuel with us. The full moon shone against the velvet sky, the tide was high, and the beach swarmed with young revelers who, like us, had waited all year for this night's irresistible dip in the dark ocean. The moment we reached the water, we all turned around, held hands, and jumped backward into the rushing waves. Amalia stumbled forward. Aitza joyfully splashed back, and so did I as I let go of my sister's hand. But my other hand remained tightly clasped to Jose Manuel's. When my friend and I took our third plunge into the sea, I wished good luck would come to him, and that from then on, his grandma would allow him to play with us out on the street. And as a wave lifted us high in the water, I suddenly knew this wish would come true. So, that was chapter 4. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.